9 out of 10 startups fail. Women and minority-led companies receive less than 10% of all venture capital. This is an environment designed for failure. Startup Hype Man's mission is to use the power of story to make success inevitable, not the exception. And this podcast is designed for entrepreneurs to share lessons learned from their stories so that you can figure out what whatever it takes means for your company to make it. Let's kick it.
I keep getting flashed up poor connection on this, so it might be why I couldn't get through.
From the Hype HQ recording studio in Chicago, Illinois, it's Startup Hype Man, the podcast. I am your host and the Startup Hype Man, Raj Nation. Every week we bring you real talk and unpack the behind-the-curtain strategies with the entrepreneurs who are doing it or who have been there, done that, all to help your startup grow up and stand out. Join the Hype Nation to catch every new episode, plus get resources and other stuff that actually help you, not the whack promotional junk that other companies try to shove down your throat. All you have to do is add your email at startuphypeman.com. Ready for some real talk? Time now for me, Raj Nation, to turn it over to, well, me, Raj Nation, for this week's conversation. Yo, welcome back everybody to another episode of Startup Hype Man, the podcast. Today on the show, we've got Richard Davies joining us from all the way from across the pond in London. Richard is the founder of Twickets, which is an ethical ticket resale marketplace. Now, doesn't that sound interesting and exciting? Basically, what that means is if you've ever had to go to a concert or a sports game and you've paid way too much on the resale market, Twickets is here to get you a resold ticket at face value. Yes, I said that right, at face value. Twickets has amassed 750,000 users on its platform and been officially endorsed and supported as the official music platform or resale platform by the likes of Ed Sheeran, the Foo Fighters, Mumford & Sons, Elton John, and more. Lots to talk about today. Richard Davies, thank you for joining the show today, or welcome to the show, I should say.
Thank you, Raj. Thanks.
Now, our topic is how do you build trust with your customers? Can you tell me, why is this on your mind? Why is this important to you?
Well, I think it's important because the whole reason we came to be really is the lack of trust that existed in what's called the secondary ticketing market, the platforms where you can buy and sell tickets at inflated prices for shows that generally are dominated by scalpers or professional brokers. They are set up really, in essence, as a fan-to-fan service, but they're absolutely everything apart from that. So I think there's a hell of a lot of distrust in those services, and we felt that it was time for a trusted, transparent alternative to the secondary market that was about serving genuine fans and for genuine fans to trade with one another and cut out the scalper.
Yeah, I don't think you'll find one fan of anything that involves a live event in the world who would disagree with you on that front. So I think this will be a really interesting conversation and a topic that I know I'll get a lot out of, and definitely our listeners will as well. Before we get into the thick of that conversation, I want to learn a little bit more about you. Now, tell me, where did you grow up, and how do you feel that impacted, or how did that shape you becoming an entrepreneur in the first place?
I grew up in London, and I guess I just saw in London a lot of people set up businesses, run startup brands, and this is obviously pre-.com days, before the internet even. I really envied what they did, and it was happening all around me. London was a buzzing place when I was growing up, and I wanted to be part of that, and I always aspired to run my own business.
Now, this is I'm going to sort of show my hand here in our age difference, but you said in the pre.com days. Now, Were they still called startups at that point, or were they just called businesses?
I think they were just called businesses.
Okay.
There was no such thing as a startup.
Yeah, I've always wondered when that terminology came around. So entrepreneurship seems to be something that is just like pulsed through your veins throughout your entire career. Did you have, like, in your own family, were there any entrepreneurs you were looking to?
No, none. That's what's strange. I don't know where it came from, but I just had that feeling within. There's so many other entrepreneurs will describe. You knew that that's what you wanted to do. And it's not that I started off life, I went to university, I got into a job, I had an interesting career in the music industry in my early 20s, but there was still that burning ambition to work for myself, which I subsequently then did.
Yeah, and if it didn't run in the family, then did your family say you're crazy when you first stepped into entrepreneurship?
Oh yeah, they thought I was totally crazy. So they couldn't understand why I was working in the music industry to start with, but then actually setting up my own business was one step too far.
Well, I want to sort of like over the next couple minutes here build the path towards Twickets, and you mentioned stepping into the music industry, which that's really like where you've chosen to reside your entire career. You co-founded a company called iCrunch back in 1998, which was Europe's first legitimate music download service. And that's a pretty big deal, right? At a time when everyone's still on dial-up modems. Can you talk through maybe quickly just what made you say, hey, there's a market need for this and there's actually like technology to match?
Well, I'd come out of the music industry, as I mentioned earlier, and I just felt that the internet was offering something so incredibly exciting in terms of distribution of music, opening up all sorts of new channels for artists to reach fans. And downloads had started to sort of come to the fore. The Rio player had come to the market. There had been launched of a few services in the US, including eMusic. But there was nothing serving the UK artists and the UK audience, and in fact Europe as a whole, to that end. So we looked at launching that, and indeed we did, with the backing, funny enough, of eMusic. eMusic backed and invested in that company, as did AOL at the time.
Well, when you say AOL, I think we all think of the dial-up modem, or at least the door closing sign when someone signs online, and the "you've got mail." Now, can you just again, 1998, how long is it taking to download? I from my memory, if I even downloaded anything in 1998, it probably would have taken over an hour to download one song, right?
Yeah, it was taking a while. Yeah, I think you're on the right lines there. It was that sort of ballpark.
The interesting thing, though, that I think with sort of the timing of that is the world didn't know any better, so right, an hour didn't actually seem like that big of a deal. You just kind of hit the button, you go and like make dinner or do whatever you need to do, and you come back to your computer when it's ready.
Absolutely. And I think it was just the sheer incitement of the fact that you could download music directly to your PC. The fact you could even do that was astonishing.
So you continue on. Music Choice ends up selling, iCrunch ends up selling to Music Choice after a few years. You spend a little bit more time on the technology front, getting into sort of digital agencies in that sense. And then that brings us, basically that takes us for a long time up to February 2015, which is when Twickets gets founded. So can you give us sort of the overview here? And you did a little bit in the introduction, but just if someone walks up to you and says, what is Twickets? What's your answer?
It's an ethical ticket marketplace. So it's the ability to sell a ticket at the original value of that ticket only, no more. Obviously, people can sell it less, but no more than face value. And it's to enable fans to trade genuinely with other fans for life reasons. When they can't attend the show, they're ill, their plans change, they go off the band that they bought a ticket for 6 months earlier. If they want to sell that ticket on, they can through our service, but only at the original price. And our view is that most fans buy tickets to attend the show, not to make money from it. So when they can't go, their first motivation is clearly to get their money back, but the second motivation is to actually ensure someone going in their place is a genuine fan too. So that's what we tap into.
Yeah, and I think you'll see that oftentimes the first thing someone does is they text their friends and say, hey, I can't go to this. Does anyone want my ticket? I'll sell it to you for face value. And then when those friends can't, they will, it's almost like then they hit the secondary market to say, okay, well, I guess I'll just make money off of this then, right? So to me, it's almost just like expanding that group text message to the entire music listening universe.
Well, it is. We started on Twitter, and the reason we started there is because we were seeing, certainly in Europe, Twitter being used by event goers as a means to sell their ticket on when they couldn't make a show to their immediate network. Now, clearly, the average number of followers on the network is limited. It's about 100, 140 these days. So the chances of you selling your ticket to 1 out of 140 people is not that great. So what we did was we aggregated that inventory and set up an account for everyone to follow, so that you could reach a much broader audience when you're looking to sell your ticket through Twitter. So as you said, it's a bit like extending a text message, really.
Now, for the people listening, so far you've said you can sell the ticket at face value. When we first got introduced, one of my initial questions, which I'm bringing it up again here because I'm sure the listener is thinking this too, is, well, if you're just selling it at face value, where does Twickets make the money? Can you talk through sort of the business model aspect of that?
Sure. So we charge the buyer of the ticket a standard booking fee, as you would pay at any primary ticketing agency or box office. You would pay a booking fee. So we don't charge the seller to sell that ticket. They sell for free, and that's our commitment to them for selling at face value. But the buyer pays a fee of typically 12 to 15% of that ticket price. And that price alone, just the fee itself, compares favorably to the secondary market, where you can be paying 30, 40, 50% of the inflated ticket price. So we're charging 12 to 15% on the capped value, face value.
Yeah. So for example, let's say you were going to a concert in let's say you were going to a Beyonce concert in the United States. If you had bought a ticket for $70 and you could no longer go to the show, and you put this up on Twickets, essentially the buyer would be paying roughly $80 for the ticket, because $70 plus essentially the service fee tacked onto that.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So we've got a really good understanding of the platform. Again, I think it's very cool that this is what you've put your effort and energy into. And again, you've amassed a pretty big audience for this. As we said in the introduction, 750,000 users, endorses the official ticket reseller by Ed Sheeran, Foo Fighters, Mumford & Sons, Muse, the Pixies. I think there's even more. The list goes on and on. Elton John even, right? So yeah. Our topic then, let's dive into it. It's on building trust with your customers. So you talked about it when I first asked you why it's on your mind, is that it was sort of crucially important with this particular market to build trust. So take us through sort of your mental process when you look at building out this platform. How does trust first come into the picture?
Okay, well, I think, as I said earlier, we had to build trust. For this to work, the audience had to believe in the proposition, and we had to be totally transparent in the way we operated. And we achieved that transparency and trust through a number of different ways. The first and probably most important thing of all is actually getting the support for what you do from your audience. So it's really building word of mouth, because without word of mouth, you're nothing. And all our growth pretty much over the years has been consistently through strong word of mouth across social platforms, but also offline, recommending Twickets to your friends as a place to sell or buy your ticket. So that is so crucial to us in terms of building trust in what we do, is it comes from the user.
Now, on the artist side, then, how are you, like the user side? Yeah, right. I see that. On the artist side, what was the value prop to them?
Well, that was really to protect their fan base from being scalped, from being ripped off, because no artist wants to see their fan pay over the odds for a ticket. They price their ticket according to the type of audience they're looking to attract. And what they don't want is someone then using that ticket price to profiteer. And they, as a result of seeing what we did and seeing the success we were having through those early stages of growth, came on board and started to endorse us and promote our services. In fact, they went as far as you've mentioned already, as far as partnering with us to actually act as their official resale channel for their shows. So we've worked now with over 250 artists, festivals and venues, all seeking to end the practices of the secondary market. And they're doing a great job in terms of helping push this alternative channel along. Now, we're not here to stop scalping. We're not claiming we're going to end scalping. That's not our position. What we're saying is we're offering an alternative way to market your ticket should you not be able to attend the show.
And what you said there with the artists, like they don't want to see their fans get ripped off. That's something that I've noticed here more recently, locally in Chicago. Chance the Rapper is like our local hero. And
we've spoken to his management. Yeah.
Very cool. And he, I think last year or 2 years ago, he held a concert at the baseball stadium here, and he found out that there was so much reselling going on that he was personally like buying back the tickets from the scalpers and then selling them at face value back to the fans. So I definitely see like the artist movement going in that direction.
Yeah, I'm well aware of that story. It's incredible. So, and that really epitomizes what this is about. So many artists now are getting on board to try and stop the profiteering around their tickets, and they're doing it in a number of different ways. In the UK, they've got together to form an alliance called Fanfare, where they're putting pressure on some of these secondary platforms to cease trading. And they're putting technology in place to stop the tickets from being transferred on those platforms as well. So I think there's a concerted effort across the board and around the globe to curb the practices of secondary ticketing.
Mm-hmm. So far you have mentioned the audience had to believe in the value proposition. We had to be totally transparent with them. What sort of comes next in your decision-making process, whether it's we need to do this or actually like tactically, like, technology-wise, we had to build this into it?
Yeah, well, I think the key thing really next was to build a robust and safe and secure service, because without that, it doesn't matter what early support you have, it'll quickly fall away. So we moved from being a Twitter-only business or facility to a transactional website and app, which then meant that the transaction had to go through us, and anyone abusing our terms of use would then have the transaction reversed, and they would be blocked from using the service in future. Now, I have to say, we don't see a great deal of bad practice on the platform. I think those that tend to want to make money through their tickets were not going to come to Twickets and sell at face value. They'll go somewhere else. But nevertheless, we needed to show to the user, both the seller of the ticket and the buyer, that we were protecting them. And in those cases where there has been fraudulent activity, it's very rare, but where it has happened, we're able to step in now and provide that service to reverse what went on.
And so on the technology side of things here, you say had to build a robust, secure, safe service.
Yeah.
What are the key things you're looking for within that? Because I think any tech company is saying, we got to make sure our platform is safe and secure. But in your specific case, what are the levers, I guess, you're looking to pull?
Okay, so we have a number of different approaches to this, and I would like to state here that we'd probably spend more time managing the view of transactions than any other ticketing company does in the world, because we care so much about what happens here and our reputation's on the line. So what we do is we've invested heavily in technology to ensure that we can track usage patterns, buying and selling patterns. We can link that to social media behavior, and we can look for checks to see whether someone is a genuine fan or not, and whether the ticket is genuine or not, particularly if we've got an integration with the event and the primary ticketing system. We also have a lot of manual input going in here as well. So every ticket that's listed on our service is manually checked before it's listed. And we will manually check the user that is listing it and buying that ticket as well if it's needed.
So really, it's about going the extra, well, I won't say mile because you're in the UK. So it's about going the extra kilometer, right?
I know we're miles as well. Okay. We are miles still.
But really, it's going the extra distance on this stuff, because I think it's easy to build the minimum requirements and be like, okay, we're good. We can focus on the marketing now, or we can focus on some other part of our business. But you're really taking it a step further and saying like baseline is not good enough. We have to make sure we are one of, if not the best at this safety security side.
Yes, absolutely. We it's an arms race. It's a bit of a cliche, but it is an arms race that we are facing some very smart people out there who will look to buy up tickets using bots, using all sorts of other techniques to hoover up tickets on an industrial scale, particularly on the primary market. So we need to make sure that we're protected from that type of activity as well. So we're continually investing in technology. We have bespoke systems in place that are continually being worked on to ensure that we have as fair trading policy as we possibly can achieve.
Yeah, the bot buying is so interesting because it's like you could build a platform for ethical reselling, but then if those tickets just get bought by someone who runs a script to buy 100 tickets at face value and then resell them on another site, it's like, what's it all for at the end of the day anyway? Yeah. So, it's refreshing to hear that you're addressing that out of the gate. So we have, get the audience to believe the value proposition, be totally transparent, build the robust, secure, safe service on the technology side. What's next for you when you look at the buyer trust or the user trust journey?
Well, I think it's supporting a fair pricing model. I talked a little bit about this earlier as well, but looking at how we can price this to the user such that it's fair and everything is transparent about it. So I mentioned previously that we allow sellers to sell for free and that our buyer's booking fee is standard versus the primary market. But we also don't charge markups either on any other services that we provide. So, for instance, the delivery of the ticket, sometimes if the ticket's physical, it has to go from the seller to the buyer direct, often, let's say, by post. We don't mark up delivery charges either. So there's no hidden extras here. What we charge for is our service through the booking fee, but everything else is passed on at cost.
Why do you think that, and whether it's tickets or otherwise, because there are other, technologies people buy that have this going on as well, why do you think it's so attractive to bury extra fees within a cost? Because again, it doesn't just happen in the ticket thing where you see your ticket and then you end up at the checkout cart page and it's all of a sudden $25 more than what you originally saw. Obviously, that happens sometimes with flights too, but then even there are like SaaS tech products, there are things, B2B products where you think it's one price, but then it ends up being, a little bit or exorbitantly more. Why do you think that's such an attractive thing for companies to want to do?
I guess it's just so easy to implement. There are so many extra revenue streams you can add into the buying process, and I think unfortunately some people abuse that technique. So, we've seen it as well here in the UK and Europe. It's this drip feed of extra charges as you move through the process, and I think they rely on the fact that people get so far down the line that they don't actually want to jump out of that transaction, so they just accept those extra charges. I think it's abusive behavior at times, and it shouldn't be allowed.
Well, yeah, and definitely it is something that, if you can say, oh, wow, I can make $20, $30 or pounds more per transaction, and then if I'm doing this many transactions in a day or a month, right, it makes so much more money. So how do you, knowing that that is a very big upside, how do you sell yourself on taking the alternative option, which is we're going to make less money per transaction? Like what's the short and long-term benefit then?
The alternative is to make more transactions, and that's what we're about. By building that trust and by attracting the users in the way we do, and driving growth through endorsement, what we're finding is we're seeing more transactions. So we're very much about the long tail. Last year in the UK alone, we ticketed for 25,000 events. So that's a pretty long tail. That's a pretty large number of events. And if we can continue to grow the number of people trading for those events, then that's where our success comes from, without ripping off the consumer.
Mm. Can you talk through, and so now to recap, I've got get the audience to believe in the value prop, build a robust, secure, safe service, support the fair pricing model. Now, is there a step 4 in this, or do you feel those are the three primary things?
No, I think there's more to come. It's involving your user base. I think in your business and your service, I think it's really important. So one of the things we did early on is to seek their collaboration. So when they're using our service and they see a ticket they feel is overpriced or someone acting against the terms of our service, to report it. So we have a report button against every ticket that's published in our app and on the website. You can then click on that and tell us if you think that ticket's overpriced, and we'll investigate further in case something slipped through the net. Added to which, we've also involved our users in our fundraise activity. So we undertook a crowd fundraise a couple of years ago where we had almost 1,000 of our users actually invest in the business. So they are co-owners of the business. I think it's important to get your audience involved in the growth of your business, and those are just two examples of the way we've done that.
I like that a lot. Get them involved in the growth of your business. It reminds me of last season on this show, we had Matt Wilson, who's the co-founder of a company called Under 30 Experiences, a close friend of mine, and our conversation in that episode was on building a community with your customer base. And it's similar line of thinking, doing more, basically involving them beyond just their direct transaction with you. How do you get them involved in additional ways?
Well, if they're part of it, then they feel more trusting in the product, and they're more likely to tell their friends and work colleagues about the service. And I think it's so important these days to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So we involve the user base. What next?
Well, I think the final thing really is offer great customer service. We have to be there and available for the customer as and when they have a problem. On too many occasions now, when I've been using online services, the customer service element is buried somewhere within the site. You can't find where to contact anyone or speak to anyone to solve the problem you have. And clearly, in a fast-moving world like the event space, people can be buying a ticket on the day of the show, and they'll need an answer to an important question relating to that show or relating to their ticket. So we need to be on hand 24/7 pretty much to answer those questions. And we have an average response time now of less than an hour per issue raised. So I'm proud of that fact. I think that really has been important as well in terms of growing the business.
Now, one thing I want to actually clarify with that for the listeners, if you've been listening throughout this season and you remember we had AJ Gull on the show who talked about scaling your company with minimal customer service. Please remember that his advice coming out of that episode was that model works if you have built a business or a platform that does not require a lot of customer service. If it is something that, like in his case, it's a B2B product. The users already inherently know what they're looking for and want. They just needed something to execute on it. So the need for customer service is not as high. Whereas in your case, day of event, people are panicking and people need to know that the site that they have put all this trust in is there for them.
Yeah, I agree with that. But at the same time, we're a marketplace. We're peer-to-peer. So actually, most of the issues get dealt with between the buyer and the seller. We only have to step in if something goes wrong. And we find that in 99% of the cases that the transaction flows through easily, particularly if we've got an integration with the event as well, so the ticket can be validated and cancelled, a new ticket reissued and goes straight to the new owner without our involvement. And therefore, the customer service need isn't a problem, and we can scale with it.
Last question here before we wrap up. Can you talk through how you went about approaching some of these big acts, right? Like it's not like Ed Sheeran at gmail.com. I mean, I don't know, maybe that's his email, but it's not like they have publicly available email addresses. What was your strategy to get an in with these artists or with their management groups?
Well, the strategy first and foremost was to tackle the problem that was frustrating everybody, both fans and industry alike. And we did that with a fans first view of life. So we built something that fans could use and that as the alternative to the secondary market, that was fair and transparent and trusted. And once we started to see some growth in the service, we then took it to some people within the industry to show them what we'd achieved. And we got a great response. I think if we'd have gone there early days and said, look, this is what we're planning to build and are you behind us? We might have had a different response, because I don't think that they would have necessarily believed it was possible for this to be a success. But the great news is that that fans have made a success. The fans wanted something different. It's never going to appeal to every single fan, but sufficient numbers of fans have got on board with what we do, have supported it and used it and recommended it. And artists have recognized that, and they've seen that this is actually something that is growing with natural momentum, and they're doing everything they can now to support it.
So then was it a case where the fan usage got so high that the artists just saw it and were contacting you, or you were like, hey, we've got a huge user base here, we'd love to have you endorse this platform?
No, in early days, it was us going to them. Now it's very much artists contacting us saying they want us to work with them on their next tour. So yeah, we went knocking down doors, in the first year or two of operation, trying to explain to people what success we were having, how it was going, and why this is important. And slowly but surely, they came on board. And now, as I said, we actually hear more from them than we have to contact. The other way around.
And were you going direct to artists those early days, or were you going to their A&R, the management group? Management and agents really are the most important people in our world. They're the people responsible for the talent, both in terms of managing their day-to-day activity and booking their live shows. So that's where we start, but it doesn't mean to say we don't have some direct communication with artists. We do. We also work with the promoters on the shows. We work with record labels. We work with a whole host of different people, venues, but really the manager and the agent are the key decision makers. And was it as simple as sending an email saying, hey, we've built a fair ticket resale marketplace?
Probably not quite as simple as that, but it wasn't too difficult to sell because, as I said earlier, it's a problem that everybody wants to see tackled. So when they saw a solution that had the ability to grow, they got behind it quite quickly.
Very cool. Before we wrap up, can you let our listeners know, and to my knowledge, Twickets has not reached the U.S. for events yet, but it's on the way. Is that right?
We are actually launched in the US now. We've only launched recently though, so just last year. We're working with a few acts in the US at the moment. Eric Church, the Foals. We're working with Elton John and Queen actually on their US dates as well. So a mixture of UK and US acts.
Okay, very cool. So where can our listeners find Twickets online? Where can they find you and get in touch?
Well, if they go to twickets.live. Or contact me on info@twickets.live, mark it for my attention, and I'll happily get back to anyone that wants to get in touch.
To wrap up, we will close the episode the way we finish every episode, which is by each giving our top line response to today's topic question. I'll go first, and then I'll let you close it out, Richard. So the topic today was, how do you build trust with your customers? As I look at the advice you shared, to me, the thing that jumped out the most was having a believable value proposition. I think so many companies get this part wrong, which makes the sales that much harder down the road because they're just saying the wrong things. And then the other thing that jumps out to me is not just having the value proposition, but you as the creator have to believe that yourself to the extent to which you've built the platform around that value proposition. And like in your case, you said, like, we had to have a fair pricing model that actually supported what we were saying we were trying to fix.
Yeah.
Richard, your top line advice, takeaway, response for how do you build trust with your customers?
I think it's totally about transparency. I think you have to go in with showing everything to the consumer that you're about, and passionate about what you do, obviously, but also at the end of the day, being totally transparent in your entire offer, and having a team that fully supports that model as well, which we do here. Everyone believes in what we do. Everybody wants to fix what is a difficult issue for fans and industry alike.
Richard Davies, founder of Twickets. Thank you for joining us on the show today.
Thank you very much.
That brings us to a close. Did you like what you heard? Did it tingle your earbuds? Support your startup ecosystem and share this episode with another founder to help them. If you don't have anyone in mind, then leave a rating and review of the show on iTunes so more entrepreneurs can learn about it. And if you want more, head to StubHubHypeman.com and click on the knowledge section to get a bonus blog post written by this week's guest where they unpack the topic even more. Remember to subscribe to the show on iTunes or Spotify or Google Play or wherever else you listen to podcasts. Startup Hype Man is more than a podcast. In fact, we support startups across the United States and globally develop sales and marketing acumen with messaging that stands out to customers and stands apart from competitors. Learn more and fill out a form at StubHubHypeman.com if you want to chat. Shout out to this week's guests for spending their time with us, and shout out to music artist Sir the Baptist for providing our show's theme song. Catch you next time. Hype Man out, word up, raise up.
Got you howling at the moon, yeah. This a dance with the devil, girl. Instead of sundown too, yeah. This a dance with the devil, girl. Tell me what you gonna do, yeah. This a dance with the devil, girl. And if you can't get it loose, then fall into the truth. It got you howling at the moon, yeah. This a dance with the devil, girl. Instead of sundown, yeah. This a dance with the devil, girl. Tell me what you gonna do, yeah. This a dance with the devil, girl. And if you can't get it loose, then
it's a dance with the devil.